Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Ultra Act Cross SH Figuarts Ultraman Special Version, which is a figure, when I first saw it, I thought, wow, that's a special version of a figure. It looks really cool. It's like Iron Man and Ultraman had some kind of baby, and it looks nice. And I wanted to buy it, but again, money, so I didn't. But luckily my buddy did, and he let me borrow it for a review, so we get to look at it here. And I have to say, some parts of this thing are fantastic. It makes me super happy. And then some parts of this thing are less than ideal. So there's a lot to talk about, kind of, so we're going to just get it off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about 16.5 centimeters, which makes him just about 6.5 inches. So he's got a little bit more size to him than you might expect. But to me, that's one of the problems. And I know he's supposed to have this kind of proportioning, but his chest and torso is just so small in relation to his legs, it throws off the look of the figure. And not so much the legs as the crotch. The crotch is really oversized. And I don't like oversized crotches. I'm just going to put it out there. It's not my favorite thing. You can pose these things away for the most part, so it's not a big deal, but it's something I have to mention. It does throw off the look just a little bit. I don't know. Like I said, it depends on how he's posed. Anyway, let's get into the accessories, because that's definitely the best part of this figure. We'll talk about paint and sculpt and articulation in just a minute. So we have the two heads, the one helmeted head and then the unhelmeted head, which looks great. In fact, I like the unhelmeted head more, which is unusual, but it looks really, really nice on the figure and on its own, so that's a nice touch. We have an interchangeable chest piece, which it wasn't apparent to me what it was for at first. And I looked at the instructions and it's slightly narrower. So I guess it's just for posing purposes. For the interchangeable hands, we have the two fist hands. We have one kind of gripping hand. We have two style pose hands and then two other style pose hands which are wider open. The gripping hand would be pretty much only used for holding the helmet like is on the box art. That's about it. Now we have the cool accessories, which are my absolute favorite. I love these things because they're made so well. We have two interchangeable forearm pieces which kind of just have keyholes in them, and then the keyhole holds his blast effect, which is done so well. It's nice and translucent blue, super saturated, and it has nice sculpt work and shading on it. Very, very cool looking accessory. And then we have two more interchangeable forearm pieces which have the swooshy effects, which are, again, very saturated, very translucent, very high quality clear plastic, and they look great. So I love those pieces. And then lastly, we have our display stand with the unique base. So it's a nice little touch. So we have a really nice batch of accessories, and we have really nice paintwork. I have to say they did a good job with the metallic silver up against the flat red. It's a very clean, very nice looking figure. Up against this gray background, it does make it look kind of dull, but in real life, it looks fine, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. The blue on the chest piece is nice and metallic, very nice looking. The eyes, I think, now maybe, I don't know if it's supposed to be like this or not. I'm not the biggest Ultraman fan. I don't know that much about it. But it seems to me like the white eyes up against the silver should have black outlining just to make them pop a little bit. But maybe it's not supposed to be like that. I don't know. But you can see on the rest of the head, it's very clean paintwork, so that's really cool. The only thing that bugs me a little bit is there's a lot of red on the back, and it's all flat, and there's no panel lining or shading or anything, so it just detracts a little bit from the figure. But otherwise, very aesthetically pleasing in terms of paint job. And the sculpt is all very sharp and clean, no soft spots. So that's good. So we only have left to talk about the articulation. And that is where I run into some problems with this figure because it's not necessarily the best situation. For the head, we have a ball hinge on top of the neck. It does work technically like the Figuarts figures, like Dragon Ball or Most Common Rider, I think, have that. But it also is limited in that you have to really finagle it to get it to move the way you want, and having this part of the helmet that dangles here makes it a lot harder to do that. So you're mostly going to get all of your posing out of the ball peg from the neck, which isn't terrible. It's nice that it's included, but it's a little limiting to have that ball hinge rather than a ball peg at the top there. For the shoulders, we have a ball peg that goes into the torso that moves the entire arm around, and it works really well, and it's got this nice cap to hide it very nicely, so that's good. But you have this shoulder pad here. It's all one piece with the upper arm. So you have to use your bicep swivel underneath that, and you have to use your hinge underneath that. And while it can look good in some poses, it can look incredibly awkward in others. So you're just going to have to be really careful how you pose him. Like right there on this side, it's nice and clean. But if you bring the arm back and out, it can look really weird. So just be careful and you'll be all right. It's not bad, it's just not great. For the elbow, we have a double jointed elbow, which works nicely. It's a little bit boxy, but I don't think it's too bad, so that's good. And then for the wrists, we have, pop it off so you can see since it's not obvious, we have a little tiny ball hinge, which is standard for your Figuarts, but due to the sculpt, like I said, you can't really see it, it might as well not be there. It might as well just be a ball peg, which isn't the best situation, but again, it's not terrible. Now we do have a little bit of an issue with the upper torso. I'm not sure what kind of joint's in there. I think it's a single ball peg. It could be a double, but it's very hard to move. It only has a little bit of range going forward and back, which isn't bad, but it's not a lot. Going side to side, almost none. It's almost non-existent, so that is a bit of a problem. And the rotation is not a ton. It's enough, but it's not a ton. I just figured since it was so robotic looking that they would have really banged out some great articulation, and I don't think they did. For the lower torso, we have a little bit of lean forward and back, a little bit of lean side to side, and almost no rotation. So again, for having such a big crotch piece, we don't have that much articulation, or at least that much range. It's not going to be a deal breaker by any means, but it's just not what I thought it would be given that it's a slightly larger figure and very robotic looking. I thought they'd get a little bit more out of it. This area here does bug me a lot. The hips are very unsightly. Is that a word? Is that a thing people say? They don't look great. If you put them all the way up like this, it pretty much hides the gaps, but there's still a lot of gapping and it just doesn't really fit together well. And once you start to pose them, it becomes even more apparent. It's too robotic and not that well executed, but you do get good range. You can bring the leg up really far that way and really far out to the side, so functionally speaking, it's great. It's just not that aesthetically pleasing. And then you have your thigh swivel on the ball peg itself, obviously, and the one where the silver meets the gray, so you get really good range out of the hips, so that's a good thing. I think for the most part, people are going to really be pleased with this figure because the aesthetic issues are far outweighed by the functionality issues. We have a nice knee joint, really good range there. We have a nice knee joint with really good range, and the knee pad does move a little bit so that you can kind of make that look however you want to, so that's okay. Good range and good functionality. And then for the ankles, now this part I don't like, but I do like at the same time. We have a hinge, it's just very limited, and that hinge happens up here. Let's see if I can get my finger out of the way. That hinge is up there by the top red piece. So it's very limited. This piece does move a little bit, but not that much, so it doesn't really afford much. It just kind of hides the joint. And then you have an actual true ankle rocker, which I do really like. It just doesn't have the most range, so I like it, but it's not the best again. And then we have a toe hinge, which is pretty good. So ultimately, there are a few setbacks on this figure, a few drawbacks, but for the most part, it's a really solid figure, and once you get imposed, especially with those accessories, you're going to be very happy. It looks great, the accessories are awesome, and the nice silver paint job on this guy's awesome, so I recommend it 100%. I like it a whole bunch. There are just a few things you should be aware of before you make the purchase. So there you go, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. That helps me out a whole bunch. And make sure you subscribe if you haven't, because I have new videos up every single day. We talk about movies, TV shows, video games, obviously action figures, all kinds of fun stuff, so come back for that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.